let's get into the book. It's called Life is Not an Accident. And of course, your devastating motorcycle accident ruined your professional career. One thing that you wrote really struck a nerve with me. Here's what you wrote.
Ooh.
You wrote, I was about to hit the pole and making contact, I actually thought, this should happen to me. During that year, I had constantly lied to the people I cared about. I had cheated left and right on the woman I loved. I had become infatuated with the money, the lifestyle, and the constant attention that came with being an NBA player. It took less than a year to become someone I didn't recognize. That is deep. Why did you feel like you deserved to have all of this taken away from you?
I don't know if necessarily I felt like I deserved to, almost lose my left leg and never play basketball again. Obviously, when you're in the moment before that happens, you don't know that's going to happen on the tail end of it. But throughout that year, it was so fascinating to watch, the lives that a lot of guys lived. And it could have been something that, now at 34, if I didn't get hurt, maybe I would have been living that life. Maybe I've been, having my wife and my kids pull up to the team plane and me kiss them and tell them I love them, I can't wait to see you tomorrow, and then jump on a plane and go to a random city and meet a girl and live this other lifestyle and act like my wife and my kids never existed. And then do whatever with the girl and then go back home the next day and be like, oh, I miss you so much. And to live multiple lives in that capacity, to get lost in money. Like I never had money before. All of a sudden, you look in your bank account and you see hundreds of thousands of dollars. And look, I understand that is a blessing. And I understand people out there can say, look, you had it all, you're an idiot for throwing it away. But just once again, just because you have money, it doesn't make you mature in how you handle it, especially if you didn't grow up having money.
But why do you think that you wouldn't have just learned these lessons without having such a devastating incident?
I may have, or I may have not. I mean, there are a lot of guys who people look up to because of what they've been able to accomplish on the court. And that doesn't necessarily make them role models, right? You're seeing what the byproduct of what they do on the court. You don't know who they are individually and how they live their lives.
Yeah.
So maybe I would have gotten a bunch of fame for what I was able to do on the court. Doesn't necessarily means I would have been a good person.
One other juxtaposition that you have in this book, which is another story you tell about the next career you were hoping to get into, which was being an agent. And of course, this is a very shady business, and you were involved in an agency that was just as underhanded as all the rest of them.
Yep.
And you write about how you feel like your reputation took a hit. Can you just talk about the difference between feeling physical pain, what that is like, as opposed to the shame that you felt when all of a sudden your good name had been tarnished?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, I don't know if I would call it underhanded because NCAA is allowed to capitalize on kids, and my thing is a lot of people are looking for help earlier.
Right, that's more of a philosophical look. Yeah.
But the physical shame, the physical pain I went through, didn't compare anything to the shame that I lived through, especially with that situation with Kevin Love. I mean, Kevin Love was a guy that I had met multiple times. We were cool, we text back and forth, a very copacetic relationship. I mean, I talked to him about my accident. I talked to him about how I felt like I was a failure and how I was redeeming myself, and I refused to let other players, get lost the same way I had gotten lost. And Yahoo Sports broke the story, and I guess Kevin was pushed into a corner. And the words he said, I can never forget. I mean, he said, why would I ever sign with an agent who threw it all away in a motorcycle accident? Why would I be that reckless? And that was one of the most hurtful things anybody ever said to me. And that brought me even into a deeper spiral of depression. And that's what actually led to my second suicide attempt.
Amazing. Jay, this book is a real soul-searching piece, and you can just tell that you put everything into it. I mean, 2 suicide attempts. Did you ever think that you would get to that dark place, and was that the darkest place?
The second one was by far the darkest place because I was, imagine you're living on Chicago and Michigan Ave in Chicago, and you have this great place, and you're living in the same building as Oprah. You're about to achieve this dream you've been waiting 21 years to achieve. And then fast forward 4 or 5 years after you figure you don't want to play basketball anymore, you end up living on the Lower East Side on 13th and First with 3 of your roommates who are all bartenders, right? And I was still addicted to Oxycontin at the time. I was trying to be an agent, dealing with kids. The Kevin Love situation happened. And it got to the point where it's like, what the heck am I doing? Like, who am I? I had weighed 220 pounds. I didn't look like myself. I had no glimmer in my eye. I didn't want to talk to people. And that's what Oxycontin did. It blurred out faces and voices. I was even saying sorry to people, fans who would come up to me and say, man, I can't believe you ruined the franchise. I'm like, I'm sorry. I know you're right. I'm apologizing to you about making a horrific accident or mistake to myself. So that's as low as it got. And just that next day, I was unsuccessful, and thank God I was. And it provided me with a different outlook, a different perspective.
Well, to see the clarity that you have now and how you're able to channel this to maybe help other people who are going through something, or just even a cathartic thing for yourself, I can understand how this book would be incredibly important.
Well, now it's great because I see things that you're doing. I study other people on air, and being an analyst is great. But I truly believe this is the beginning for me.
Great.
Like, I would love to be a host, but I would have never gotten to this point if I had shunned my past away. Like a lot of people do in their lives, they try to act like things didn't happen. I finally had to embrace it and say, oh, this doesn't define me, but this is part of my journey.